Ever wonder about the untold stories behind your favorite musicians? Well, get ready to explore the dark and intriguing world of the top 20 worst alcoholic musicians in history. It's an experience you definitely don't want to miss. Number 20. Amy Winehouse. Our journey into the world of music's troubled souls begins with the incredible talent and tragic life of Amy Winehouse. On July 23, 2011, the music world was stunned when Amy passed away at the tender age of 27. But her struggles with alcohol started much earlier. You see, Amy had her first sip of alcohol at just 12 years old. Her addiction was a constant companion, but it didn't stop there. As fame and pressure mounted, she turned to even darker substances, including crack cocaine and heroin, to numb the pain of her mental health issues. Paramedics found her lifeless body at home, surrounded by empty vodka bottles scattered on the floor. Toxicology tests revealed a chilling fact. She had consumed alcohol to a level 5 times the legal drink and drive limit. Amy Winehouse's tragic demise was a result of alcohol poisoning. Number 19. Brian Jones. You might think of Keith Richards as being the indestructible one, but it was Brian who met a shocking end. By August 9, 1969, Brian had already been booted from the Rolling Stones due to his drug convictions preventing them from touring in the U.S. But what happened next was nothing short of shocking. When they fished Brian's lifeless body out of his own swimming pool, the autopsy told a grim tale. Traces of pet pills, sleeping tablets, and alcohol were found coursing through his bloodstream. The cause of death? Drowning by immersion in fresh water, coupled with severe liver dysfunction caused by fatty degeneration and the ingestion of alcohol and drugs. Sad to say, no one was surprised. Number 18. Billie Murcia. It was October 1972 when the New York Dolls touched down in London for a series of shows that included a gig with rock icons Rod Stewart and the Faces at the Wembley Empire Pool, now known as Wembley Arena. One night at a speakeasy in Margaret Street, Billie met a girl named Marilyn Woolhead, who offered him a dose of Mandrax, a sedative and hypnotic drug. Intrigued, Billie accepted her invitation to her flat at Brompton Lodge on Cromwell Road in Kensington. The events of that fateful night remain shrouded in mystery. What we do know is that with the Mandrax taking its toll, Billie indulged in some champagne and then passed out. In a desperate attempt to revive him, some of the partygoers placed him in an icy bath, while Marilyn tried to force him to drink black coffee. It proved to be a lethal combination. The official cause of Billie Murcia's death was recorded as drowning in a domestic bath while under the influence of alcohol and methaqualone. It was a shocking end to the life of a young musician on the brink of stardom. Number 17. Bon Scott. Bon was known for his heavy drinking, even by rock star standards. On the night of February 18, 1980, he embarked on what would be his last party at the Music Machine Club in London. It was a night of heavy drinking with friends, and eventually Bon climbed into the back of a friend's car to sleep it off. The tragic discovery came the following day when friends found him hunched over and covered in vomit. It was a horrifying scene, and it was believed that he had died from asphyxiation due to vomit traveling into his lungs. At just 33 years old, Bon Scott, the original voice of AC/DC, was gone. Later speculation pointed towards alcohol poisoning and aspiration pneumonia as the likely culprits. Number 16. Clyde McPhatter. Clyde McPhatter's journey into the music world began with his high-pitched tenor, which was steeped in the gospel music he sang during his early years. As a teenager, he formed the Mount Lebanon Singers, a gospel group that set the stage for his future success. His career soared when he became the lead tenor of Billy Ward and his Dominoes, a group that owed much of its initial success to Clyde's incredible vocals. Later, he went on to form his own group, the Drifters, and even pursued a solo career. But amidst all the fame and talent, Clyde McPhatter battled personal demons. He struggled for years with alcoholism and depression, and despite his legendary status, he found himself broke and despondent. Sadly, on June 13, 1972, McPhatter passed away in his sleep at the age of 39. The cause? Complications of heart, liver, and kidney disease, all brought on by years of alcohol abuse. Number 15. Brian Connolly. What sets Connolly's case apart from many others is that his demise wasn't a result of consuming excessive amounts of alcohol in his later years. Instead, it was the culmination of choices he made throughout his life in relation to alcohol. Brian's battle with the bottle had serious consequences. He experienced organ failures and suffered multiple heart attacks. Even after enduring a prior heart attack, Brian made the difficult decision to discharge himself from the hospital, illustrating how powerful addiction was in his life. In light of this story, it's clear that alcoholism can lead to severe diseases and organ failure over time. It's a cautionary tale, not just for aspiring musicians, but for anyone, young or old. Number 14. David Byron. Throughout his time in the spotlight, Byron grappled with substance abuse, particularly alcohol. His excessive drinking took a toll both on his physical and mental health, leading to erratic behavior and strained relationships within the band. As Uriah Heep's success began to wane in the late 1970s, Byron's personal problems escalated. On February 28, 1985, at just 38 years old, he passed away due to complications directly related to his battle with alcohol addiction. The exact cause of his death was liver failure, a tragic outcome of years of heavy drinking. Byron's liver had suffered extensive damage, rendering it unable to function properly. Ultimately, it failed altogether. Number 13. Keith Moon. The legendary drummer of The Who, Moon was a powerful performer both on and off stage. He was known for his wild antics, including destroying hotel rooms and demolishing his drum kit during performances. During the 70s, Moon faced numerous obstacles, including the accidental death of his chauffeur and the end of his marriage. But perhaps the most significant challenge was his escalating addiction to alcohol, with a penchant for brandy and champagne. While on tour, he became infamous for passing out multiple times on stage, leading to hospitalizations. As his condition deteriorated, Moon returned to London in 1978, a clear sign that his battle with alcohol was taking a real toll. Tragically, in September of that year, he met a devastating end due to an overdose of a medication used to treat and prevent alcohol withdrawal symptoms. Number 12. Lester Young. Moving on to a different genre of music, let's talk about Lester Young, a jazz tenor saxophonist affectionately known as the Prez. Young's impact on the world of jazz was profound, with his unique style described as, quote, a free-floating style, wheeling and diving like a gull, banking with low, funky riffs that pleased dancers and listeners alike. Unfortunately, his story takes a tragic turn. Alcohol played a significant role in the decline of Young's career and ultimately his life. The latter half of the 1940s saw a gradual ebbing of the quality and consistency of his playing, a decline directly related to his increasing alcohol consumption. By 1951, Young's playing had deteriorated significantly as his drinking continued to rise. His final studio recordings and live performances took place in Paris in March 1959 during an abbreviated European tour. During this time, he barely ate and he drank heavily. The consequences were serious. On a flight to New York, Young suffered from internal bleeding due to alcoholism. Tragically, he passed away in the early morning hours of March 15, 1959, just hours after arriving back in New York. He was just 49 years old. Number 11. Bix Beiderbecke. Known for his prodigious talent in the world of jazz, Bix also had a notorious reputation for heavy drinking, which ended up wreaking havoc on his life. His alcohol abuse led to severe health issues, including cirrhosis of the liver and recurring bouts of pneumonia. As his health deteriorated rapidly in the months leading up to his death, Beiderbecke's love for music continued to drive him. He performed his last professional gig at the Rendezvous Ballroom in Balboa, California. However, the end was near. On August 6, 1931, he was admitted to the Swanee River Hotel in Davenport, Iowa, as his condition worsened. Diagnosed with pneumonia, his body simply couldn't fight the disease any longer, and Beiderbecke passed away that same day, leaving the jazz world mourning the loss of a true musical genius. Number 10. Lorenz Hart. Lorenz Hart was an unstoppable force when it came to professional success, but his personal life told a different story. He battled alcoholism and faced increasing instability. Reports suggest he would disappear for days on end, often in the grip of severe alcohol intoxication. Many of his contemporaries made disturbing claims about his personal life, including fictitious details such as that he changed his sexual orientation because women rejected him. He experienced depression and sadness throughout his life. In the end, pneumonia claimed Hart's life a few days after his admission to the hospital. His last words were, quote, "What have I lived for?" Number 9. Modest Petrovich Mussorgsky. Modest Mussorgsky's name might not be as familiar as others on this list, but his struggles with alcohol were all too real. He was known for being quite the heavy drinker, and his beverage of choice was vodka. Now, Mussorgsky's journey into the world of alcohol began early during his time at military school. It's almost as if they had a drinking culture there because the school's director, General Sukhov, had a thing for encouraging the students to indulge in a tipple or two. And that's where Mussorgsky's problems with alcohol really took root. His drinking habit became so severe that in his later years he teetered on the brink of death several times. There are stories of him being found passed out in ditches by friends. Sadly, he never managed to fully grapple with his addiction. Mussorgsky met his untimely demise at the young age of 42, courtesy of an epileptic attack brought on by, you guessed it, alcohol. Number 8. Michael Clarke. If you're a fan of 60s rock music, you probably know him as the drummer for the iconic group The Byrds. But his story takes a heartbreaking turn due to his lifelong struggle with alcohol. Born Michael James Dick on June 3, 1946, Clarke was just 47 when he passed away on December 19, 1993. The cause of death? Liver failure. And it wasn't just any liver failure, it was a direct result of more than 3 decades of heavy alcohol consumption. By the late 1980s, Clarke had had numerous hospital stays due to the toll that a lifetime of hard drinking had taken on his body. But his tragic story doesn't end there. In his final days, he expressed a wish to appear on television, hoping that by sharing his battle with alcoholism, he could alert children to the dangers of going down the same path he had. Number 7. John Bonham. Bonham often struggled with being away from home while on tour with Led Zeppelin. To cope with his loneliness and perhaps the pressures of stardom, he turned to alcohol, hoping it would drown out his sadness. The fateful day was September 24, 1980, when Led Zeppelin began rehearsals for their upcoming North American tour. Bonham's day started with a rather ominous breakfast. He downed 4 quadruple screwdrivers, which is essentially vodka with a splash of orange juice. As rehearsals went on, so did his drinking spree. 12 hours of continuous drinking took its toll. Eventually, his assistant put him to sleep on his side, a precaution against choking on his own vomit, a tragically common end for those who drink excessively. The next morning, they found him unconscious, and despite attempts to revive him, it was too late. Bonham had passed away in his sleep, a victim of alcohol. At the time, he had consumed an astonishing 40 units of vodka. Number 6. Ron Pigpen McKernan, a member of the iconic band The Grateful Dead. Unlike many of his bandmates who dabbed in psychedelic drugs, Pigpen had a preference for alcohol. By 1971, his health had taken a severe hit due to alcoholism and liver damage. Doctors warned him to stop touring, but the grip of addiction proved too strong. On March 8, 1973, tragedy struck, and Pigpen was found dead at the young age of 27. The cause? A gastrointestinal hemorrhage, a severe consequence of his alcohol abuse. Number 5. Townes Van Zandt. He left a lasting impression, but tragically, he battled some formidable demons. drug and alcohol addiction, along with a dual diagnosis of bipolar disorder. Towns' struggle with addiction was a relentless one. He found himself in rehab nearly a dozen times, a testament to how addiction can ensnare even the most talented and creative minds. By 1982, he was consuming at least a pint of vodka every single day. Later in life, he faced a particularly harrowing episode. After a nasty fall that landed him in the hospital, he had to grapple with alcohol withdrawal. In a desperate bid to ward off delirium, his ex-wife gave him vodka. It's a heartbreaking example of how addiction can lead to these tragic, last-ditch efforts to stave off the torment of withdrawal. On January 1, 1997, Van Zandt's life was tragically cut short by cardiac arrhythmia. Number 4. Billie Holiday. Billie Holiday was one of the most influential jazz singers in American history, but her life was tragically marred by the shadows of drug and alcohol abuse. As a child and teenager, she'd been raped multiple times and used alcohol and drugs to self-medicate the pain from trauma. It all started when her first husband introduced her to opium. This insidious introduction soon led to a full-blown heroin addiction. Billie's struggle with sobriety was marked by attempts at rehab, but unfortunately, it was a battle she couldn't quite conquer. Addiction has this uncanny ability to tighten its grip, no matter how hard you fight. Then, in 1959, tragedy struck. Billie collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. There, she received a grim diagnosis: advanced liver cancer. And if that wasn't enough, she also had to endure the torment of heroin withdrawal. On July 17, 1959, Billie Holiday's remarkable voice was forever silenced. She passed away due to pulmonary edema and heart failure, both stemming from the cirrhosis of her liver, a condition that had been fueled by years of alcohol abuse. She was just 44 years old. Number 3. Jim Morrison. Jim Morrison, the enigmatic leader of The Doors, a legend in his own right and a tragic figure in the world of music. His name is etched deep in history, not just for his mesmerizing performances, but also for the traumatic addiction that eventually claimed his life at the tender age of 27. Morrison's journey down the treacherous path of substance abuse was a long and winding one. Alcohol and drugs became his companions, helping him navigate the stormy seas of traumatic events and depressive moods. Some even believed that it fueled his creativity. As the years rolled on, the toll of his choices became evident. By the time The Doors released their 4th album, it was painfully clear that drugs and alcohol had taken their toll. Morrison's performances suffered, and the world watched as a once vibrant star began to dim. Then came that fateful morning, July 3, 1971, in the heart of Paris. A friend discovered Morrison's lifeless body in a bathtub. The circumstances surrounding his death are shrouded in controversy. No autopsy was performed, leaving us with more questions than answers. Some say he accidentally overdosed on heroin, mistaking it for cocaine, his drug of choice. Number 2. Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix, the guitar virtuoso and one of the greatest musicians of all time, was not an exception to the drug culture of the 1960s. Hendrix's experimentation with drugs was not limited to the confines of a quiet room. He took his explorations to the stage, dropping acid even during his legendary performance at the Monterey Pop Festival. It wasn't just LSD. He had a buffet of substances on his menu. Marijuana, hash, amphetamines, and cocaine were all regulars in his life. When Jimmy mixed these drugs with alcohol, he got into real trouble. He had a tendency to become ill-tempered and even violent. In 1968, during a European tour, his addiction led to a drunken brawl at a hotel. In the days leading to his tragic death on September 18, 1970, Hendrix's health had been deteriorating. He was physically exhausted from relentless work, battling an influenza-related illness and suffering from chronic sleep deprivation. On that fateful night, he partied hard and consumed amphetamines. When he finally returned home, he made a fatal decision. In his desperate quest for rest, he took a staggering 18 times the recommended dose of sleeping pills. The next morning, he was found lifeless, his body covered in vomit. Jimi Hendrix, the visionary guitarist whose music transcended genres and generations, met his untimely death at the age of 27, a victim of barbiturate-related asphyxia. Number 1. Michael Jackson. There are moments where everyone remembers exactly where they were and what they were doing. For some, it's the JFK assassination. And for others, it was the day that the king of pop, Michael Jackson, passed away. Jackson's journey to international stardom began at a young age as a member of the Jackson 5. His solo career in the 80s catapulted him into iconic status. In 2009, he was preparing for an epic 50-night residency at London's O2 Arena, a testament to his enduring popularity. However, behind the scenes, a dangerous situation was unfolding. His personal doctor, Conrad Murray, was administering propofol, midazolam, and lorazepam to help Jackson sleep. But on one fateful rehearsal day, Jackson received a fatal dose of propofol and benzodiazepine, which triggered a cardiac arrest, leading to his untimely death at the age of 50. The signs of trouble had been there for years. As early as 2006, members of Jackson's family were deeply concerned about his escalating dependence on prescription drugs. They attempted an intervention in Las Vegas, with Janet on the phone and Randy, Jackie, and Rebby present in person. They believed Michael was addicted, but he vehemently denied it. At that time, a Jackson insider revealed that an aide was supplying the superstar with drugs obtained from multiple doctors. Jackson's cocktail of choice included straight morphine, Demerol, OxyContin, Valium, and Xanax. He had become a, quote, clinically functioning addict, which, as the insider warned, is the most dangerous type. These addicts often stop and start, and the risk of overdose is ever present. After Jackson's tragic death, family attorney Brian Oxman, who had been with the grieving family at the hospital, suggested that drug abuse had remained a critical and destructive factor in Jackson's life. He drew comparisons to the tragic case of Anna Nicole Smith, emphasizing that what they had seen in Michael Jackson's life was on a different scale. That's it, the top 20 worst alcoholics in music history, each with a unique story and tragic ending. Remember, addiction is a serious issue. If you or someone you know is struggling, please seek help. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating stories from the world of music. Thanks for watching.